So guys, Mr. Dele Farotimi has released another bombshell. This time he spoke on the original criminals. This is coming at a time when Nigerians have been speaking out. I mean, people have been talking a lot, ranting about the Tinubu's government and the kind of poor leadership that Nigerians are seeing under Tinubu's government. And you have seen that these leaders, they tend to like pay deaf ears as if what Nigerians are complaining about does not even concern them. Anyway, guys, I'm going to allow you to take a look at what Mr. Dele Farotimi has got to say about the original criminals. Just take your time. Watch this video to the end to see all the things that Mr. Dele Farotimi said during this session. Just take a look for yourself.
Power corrupts. That is the totality of the purpose of power. So when the law and every society breeds power. So when the law grants a power, it also sets the guardrails by which that power is exercised. So when a person takes power by law, quote and unquote, whether the process had been subverted or not, but this power is taken by law, the power is equally limited by law, except the criminality that governs the electoral process is not allowed to end with the electoral process and has been carried over into the governing system. When criminality is now carried over into the governing system, the rulers become as criminals because they are not bridled by law. When the interpreters of the law finds basis for interpretation outside of the canons of law that they are asked to interpret consistently, when judicial anarchy reigns supreme instead of the rule of law, what you have are criminals in error. Now, when the gatekeepers of public morality become criminal themselves, how do they become criminal? If it is your job, your self-assigned job, in the name of God, to speak in the name of God, but you become blinded to the evil of society, what happens at that point is that you become complicit in the evil and you become as those that you were called to speak truth to. If the original criminals are outside and innocent persons are within the prison walls, let me share one experience with you. When I was in Ekiti prison, there was, in fact, most of the people in the prison, a prison built for about 250 people had over 800 inmates. Well over 500 of those inmates were awaiting trial. And the bulk of them were in prison using, they came to prison by virtue of a process known in Ekiti magistrate court as Form K. Once the police prosecutor files a case before a magistrate in Ekiti and he files a Form K, that Form K is asking the magistrate to send that person to prison for at least 1 month. There is nothing anybody can do to move a bail application that 90-something% of the magistrates were not interested in hearing. Once the police came with a Form K, that person was going to prison for at least 1 month. That is the kind of judicial system, law enforcement system that we have evolved. And we speak at any level to a society that is devoid of criminals? How? Let me remind you, the executive, your governors, your local government chairmen, before you start talking about your presidents, they profit from the insecurity. If they don't profit from it, if they are not criminals profiting from it, why are they driving bulletproof cars when you are left to the mercies of the elements? If they were not driving bulletproof cars, would they not address the subject of insecurity? The roads are bad, but they are driving SUVs. They even insult us by appropriating money to buy SUVs for themselves. They insult us and tell us that it's because the roads are bad. Who are the real criminals? Who? They don't build hospitals because their own doctors are abroad. And why would they build any hospitals when they don't care about me and you? And we're still talking about criminals in prison? Who are the original criminals, if not those who deny you, deliberately deny you good life? And yes, the ones that ask you to pray for them, are they not complicit in this evil? And are they different from the criminals who perpetrate the evil that leads to the insecurity that they cure by buying bulletproof cars and arming themselves with soldiers and all kind of military personnel and policemen to protect themselves and their cronies? Why is me and you have to keep living by faith? How? How? Education? I'm going to remind you, I warrant that you will not find Nigerian rulers' children in any of our tertiary institutions in any significant number, especially the government-owned ones. The children are abroad or in private universities when they want to pretend that they live as commoners as well, so that they can say, oh, their children are in schools in Nigeria. They don't put their children in systems that they run. How? Nigeria once had the record of being the 6th largest producer of crude in the entire world. Number 1 in Africa. This country has more hydrocarbon than it has crude, but it flares and wastes it when it should harness it and build local industry. And you tell me those who have superintended that system for over 50 years are not criminals? How? This country had 4 refineries, government-owned refineries, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. And today, without anybody being in prison or being convicted, 4 refineries were killed. And we continue to vote. I say we, no, God forbid, I'm not responsible. Some people continue to vote monies every year, appropriate money for these 4 refineries that you've already killed. And then they are doing all kind of photo op, saying the Port Harcourt refinery was working. Come on. And these are not criminals. And the people responsible are not in prison. Nobody is in prison for ruining 4 refineries. 4. The only one that works in Nigeria, a privately owned one, cannot buy crude in Naira. Chineke mi, ori mi o. What kind of people and ruining our country. What is going on? And we're still talking about criminals in prison. What about all these criminals that are living in plain sight? How? We're importing food. How? Look, before the white man ever darkened these shores, for you to be a man in this part of the world, by the time you are said to be a man, you would have conquered hunger. You would have a roof over your head. You would have learned one skill or the other, but you would have a self-sustaining life. But today, we have evolved a society where somebody went to university and became a truck pusher, and we don't have enough teachers. But they couldn't even find anything for this man to do but become a truck pusher after university, after NYSC. We are all criminals, but those who are meant to be ruling the society have become even more criminal than anyone else, because how else do you explain a society that has evolved in this manner? How? Food is scarce in a country that has arable land. The people in Huromi who have been arrested, I'm hoping that they will go through a lawful process. But even when they might have been convicted for the murders of these persons, have we examined the original criminals in that situation? What created a state of affair where the people lived in so much fear of their fellow human beings and have evolved a process of demonization that the Fulani person or the northern person who was bearing any form of arms, be they licensed or not, are fit for killing? Something evolved that society. Something made this normal. The rulers had failed in their primary duty to protect the people. They failed in protecting the people, and the people returned to the original state of nature where life is short, nasty, and brutish. The state failed. Before those people got to the point where they became so fearful of a northern person in their terrain, how many Fulani marauders have they had to cope with when the state had turned the blind eye? What did the state do to help explain that it is not every person of northern origin that should be considered a threat? What did the state do? And when I'm talking state, I'm not just talking about government. I'm talking about the traditional rulers. I'm not talking about the state government alone. What about the federal government that controls all the security apparatus? What did it ever do? And I'm not talking about Bulaba alone, especially during the Buhari years, when impunity of all manners were tolerated by the Fulani marauders. And these were not even Nigerian Fulanis. These were largely imported ones, brought in because of politics. And you're asking who the original criminals are. The original criminals are in your corridors of powers, and the persons in prisons are largely victims of their criminality. That is the point I am making to you. And the situation is even now worse when you get into the prison and you see the way the prisoners are treated. You know at that point that the state itself is the criminal. Any entity that would keep human beings in the conditions that Nigerians are kept in what they call prisons, and in fact, they lie and call them, what's that nonsense? please, correctional. It corrects nothing. There is nothing to correct. Even the officers themselves are not different from the victims they are meant to watch over, because the officers are themselves victims of the system. How do you correct somebody you can't even feed to keep alive? And you're asking who the original criminals are? Original criminals? The original criminals are staring right back at you in the mirror because you've tolerated this evil. The original criminals are staring right back at you. Every time you look in the mirror, you're seeing the criminals. But the biggest criminals of all, they're the ones sat in judgment. They're the ones sat in the government house. They're the ones meant to enforce the laws. They are the original criminals. We have evolved a society that functions on the back of abnormalities. Original criminals. I was speaking to the Nwosu thing a little earlier on, and I will use that to round it up. Here is the thing. You saw them refusing to recognize Humphrey Nwosu. And a lot of you fell for the error of thinking it was about ethnicity. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. If it was about ethnicity, state governments in the southeast could have set the ball rolling by immortalizing him. Anambra could set the ball rolling. They could name their electoral commission building. Start with that. But it's not about ethnicity. It's never been about ethnicity. If it were about ethnicity, Abiola would have been immortalized in the time of Obasanjo. But they must never give you positive role models. If they told you that this man is being immortalized because of option A4, which he enforced, if not evolved, but at least he was the one who had the job of administering this option A4. And until date, I am going to be 57. That is the freest and fairest election I have seen in my entire life. And that wasn't the first election that I will see, but it was the first in which I voted. I have not seen another election anywhere near as credible. How do you then expect these products of fraud and fraudulence, whether that be of the judicial process or be that of the electoral system? How do you expect them to hold up a man who symbolizes free and fair elections? How? They can never do that. So when you fall for the bait of ethnicity and you start thinking it's about ethnicity, you are just as foolish as they believe you to be. It is easy to lose sight of the fact. Obasanjo is not only a Yoruba man, he's from the same town as Abiola. He resisted ever allowing them to recognize June 12. I know as a fact, and you can ask people by generation, when Abacha was going to take over in November 1993, at least 100 people were killed on Ikorodu Road alone, and they remain buried in unmarked graves till today. Obasanjo took power just 6 years later. 6 years later, in spite of his complicity in the June 12 debacle, he couldn't find the grace. He could never find the grace to immortalize the victims because they could not afford to allow the people to understand the powers that they have. In immortalizing Abiola, it would have been deifying the power of the people's vote. How could he do that when he was preparing for a tsunami of 2003? It would have been rank hypocrisy. So he couldn't do it, and he didn't do it. And for years, it was resisted. It took a dictator, a lawbreaker, a killer of democracy like Buhari to come and play the politics of immortalizing Abiola, because by then they had established this reign of madness that has overtaken all of us. Let us be clear. The real criminals are closer to home It's me and you, and it is our rulers. We are the original criminals. We tolerated these. That's why we've become acculturated to it. We tolerated it, we mollycoddled it, we explained it. You are sat in churches where they are lying to you as I speak to you right now. And in spite of the fact that you have been busy fasting yourselves, you are dieting, most of you. You are dieting because, in fact, some of you, you were dieting all through the Ramadan because you were busy pursuing the path of the monafik right there whilst you were fasting. You were fasting, you were busy recalling Natasha with lies. You were fasting. Each and every one of the person involved, some of you would even say you are Muslims, some would say you are Christians, but of every one of you, and you sat there. What did you do when you were done being part of that evil? You washed your hand. You helped normalize it. Oh, it's just politics. It's just politics. You are not from Kogi. You're not from Kogi, but you normalize the evil in Kogi. You found a reason to normalize it. Ethnicity, politics, religion, and you were busy fasting. You were dieting, motherfucker. Anyways, I think enough said. When we are good and ready, we know what to do. Well, let me close my sermon this morning by reminding you of purpose. Because when purpose is unknown, abuse becomes inevitable. I had an interview, I gave an interview to News Now, like a couple of weeks ago now. I think that it was aired last Monday. And in that interview, I said amongst many other things that I warrant that if Tinubu gave the National Assembly, if he sent a bill, it might not even be the one to send, it might be a member's bill that will go before the National Assembly, and he will tell the National Assembly that His Excellency, Imperial Majesty desires a third, fourth, or fifth time. And I said it will be granted. And then I heard the Ebora of Owu pretty much echoing the same thing later in the week, this last week. And I laughed inside of me because there was something else I said to you lot that you probably didn't pay attention to. And I must have said that, I think, around September. I said, pay attention to Fagbemi, your Attorney General. I assure you, you hear me? I assure you, full-blown dictatorship is upon us. I don't know for how much longer the likes of me will be tolerated before they will find a way, one way or the other, whether using the same criminal system as they have done before, or maybe this time around, they will find more ingenious ways. I don't know how long they will tolerate the likes of me, but I assure you, we're already in a full-blown dictatorship. It masquerades as a democracy, but it is not. This is a criminal empire now, full-blown one. For some of us, we have resolved. Don't go nowhere. You hear me? But be prepared. Don't be fooled. If we are going to come out of this, it will be because we resolved as a people that enough is enough. There must be a point where the elasticity breaks. Because these people, we've been talking about electoral reform, and I'll continue to speak about it. And we have actually now more or less rounded up our work on the draft bill. But it's getting to the point where I actually begin to doubt, verily doubt, if we'll be able to get any concessions out of this system through the electoral path. But that's another story for another day. Let me seize this opportunity to invite each and every one of you, as many of you as are in the Lagos axis, keep in mind and keep your date, keep your calendar free for the 10th of April. Remember, I took on the role of the National Organizing Secretary of Afenifere. We would be having a public lecture symposium at the Moson Center on the 10th of April. That's the day that would have been Chivayo Adebanjo's 97th birthday. So we have this event slated in honor of him, but it was something we were already planning before Baba's demise. We'll be putting more information in the public space in the coming days. But get something clear. We have to organize ourselves around ideas and ideals. Without them, we can't unite ourselves. And without uniting ourselves, we can't fight this dictatorship. We cannot vote our ways out of this mess. Yeah. We will pursue electoral reforms, but I don't believe we can vote our ways out of this mess if we are not organized to defend our votes. Eat the times you eat, the kind of things you can eat, and when you can eat them. Yorubas had extremely regimented, rule-based societies. So how could they possibly be speaking about Ilutiko Sofe, a land devoid of rules? It was impossible for the Yorubas to have ever been speaking to a place devoid of rules. So every time I have sat down over the years from my childhood, from when I'd learned that proverb, hearing it from my grandparents, from seeing the kind of rules by which we lived, it had always seemed like a contradiction, and I'd often wondered exactly what do they mean. But keep that proverb in mind. We'll come back to it. We need to travel a little deeper. But that proverb, keep it in mind. Who is a criminal? Because I'm talking about the original criminal. Who is the criminal? Now, I believe that if you go into any dictionary, it will tell you that a criminal is a person who has committed a crime. But it would also tell you that it is a person who has been convicted. You've got two. A person who has committed a crime and a person who has been convicted. So it is not necessarily the convicted person that you hold to be a criminal, but the person who you have witnessed serially committing crimes is equally a criminal. So when I speak about criminals, I should know. After all, I've been in prison. Yes, I spent 20 days in prison, not in detention, in prison. I have met criminals, people who have been convicted of their crimes. I also met a whole lot of people and shared space with them and fellowship with them who swore that they committed no crimes, or at least not the ones that they were charged with, and whose stories I verily believe. So they were in prison, but they were not criminals. But there were also criminals who were already in prison. But who are the original criminals? Because I wasn't speaking to those ones. But before you can speak to who the original criminals are, let's ask ourselves, what are laws? It's very simple. If you say, ask what laws are, you speak about laws, you speak about bylaws, you speak about constitution, you speak about these and any set of rules that governs a people, system of rules by which a people or a country or community recognizes, those laws that recognize as regulating the actions of their members and which they may enforce by the imposition of penalties and or sanctions. Those are laws. But there are two critical elements when you're talking about laws. The society recognizes this to be laws. That's the first one. Second, it may, as a society, enforce those laws. So there are two aspects to this. There is a law in Nigeria, at least on our statute books, on bigamy, which means that you may not marry more than one wife. But even your chief justices have married more than one wife. But we have a way of shading the meaning. And how do we shade the meaning? It's simple. You marry a wife under the act, that's at the registry, and then you proceed to marry multiple ones by customary law. Nobody can pass that law beyond that. But that is what it is at the end of the day. So the society does not recognize the validity of that law, and because we do not recognize the validity of that law, it has never held. Oh, no smoking in public spaces. There are big laws on our books, but nobody recognizes the validity of these laws. So people keep doing whatever they please. And then you talk about may enforce. Let me share one with you. So you're right there at the traffic light, especially in Lagos. I don't know about other states. I live in Lagos. I can only speak to that. Everywhere in Lagos, no exception, wherever you are. So you're driving, and then you came to a traffic light, and you stopped at the traffic light. And the next thing you know, that guy driving the commercial bus, he circles right there in front of you. Last mile is there. Lawma self did there. The police is standing right there. And the guy zooms off, goes to the bus stop, right next to the last mile guy, and he picks his passenger and he continues. Meanwhile, you are at the traffic light. God forbid that light was yellow when you moved. The same last mile official, the same policeman will grab you. So who is the criminal? Because, you know, when the question comes and you begin to ask, who are the criminals? I tell you that the problem we have is that we have all become as criminals. The original criminals are drawn from within the society in which we live because our norms have collapsed as a people. For laws to be laws, the people must recognize these laws as laws. And then the laws must be even-handedly enforced for it to be valid in a society governed by law. So if you are asking who the original criminals are, it's me and you, all of us. But some people in every society are the ones that are structured to carry the law. So here is where we go. Your policemen are criminals. Let me explain myself. In Yoruba, the word Olopa means the bearer of staff. What staff does the person bear? The staff of the king's authority, a staff of office. So when he bears this insignia and he goes to a place, he pronounces the king's word and he is called Olokpa. Olokpa Oba. Right? Now, if the person is Olokpa, but the person who bears the Opa, the signal of the authority of the law, is himself unrestrained by the law, because the law does not grant a power that it also does not restrain. When the law grants you a power, it sets the limits of the powers that it has granted so that the power may not be abused. Power corrupts. That is the totality of the purpose of power. So when the law and every society breeds power, So when the law grants a power, it also sets the guardrails by which that power is exercised.
So, guys, you have seen it for yourself. That's Mr. Dele Farotimi speaking for Nigerians. He has become the mouthpiece of so many people because we are living in a country where our leaders appear to be so insensitive. When I mean so insensitive, these leaders, sometimes you even tend to wonder if they are in Nigeria. I mean, if they are in this country with us or if they've left the country. This is a country where people have no light, businesses are collapsing, all kinds of things happening, and you see those speaking for the Tinubu's government, they will come to tell you that the Tinubu's government has done so well. Reports say 7.2 million businesses have shut down between the space of 1 year, from 2023 to 2024. 7.2 million businesses shut down. But you've seen Tinubu spokespeople coming out to say, oh, Tinubu has tried, he has done this. This is the mess they brought Nigerians into. And now, like, they will tell you that the Naira is recovering. How much did they make the Naira that they are now praising themselves? I mean, the whole thing is going bad and they just keep praising themselves that Tinubu has done this, Tinubu has done that, forgetting that Nigerians know where this country was when Buhari left office. Buhari, that was even seen to be the worst leader Nigeria has ever had. Now Buhari is being celebrated as a saint, considering what Tinubu has done to Nigerians within the space of not even up to 2 years. This country has no bearing. Everybody wants to japa. There is no hope in Nigeria. People cannot eat. People who graduated can't find job. You find job, the payment you get can't fetch you anything. I mean, you are not even talking about the insecurity. Okay, for those who say they want to stay home and do some minor things online and get more and get paid, you can't do that because you can't afford electricity. You pay, you don't even get the service. You don't get electricity, and then you've heard about the telecom tariff that has gone so up, and Tinubu's government is enjoying everything because it was their plan from the onset to tax the people. Tinubu always said, widen the tax net. That is what they are doing. Tax the people, even when the people are struggling to survive. Tax them, drag them on the floor. That is what Tinubu's government is doing. And that is why you see people lamenting. Nobody wants to stay back in Nigeria. I mean, every day Nigerians want to leave. Every day. Even with like the United States visa policies that are coming up and the ones that are already on ground. Nigerians want to leave. Even if it's difficult to go from, all those backyard routes to Europe, people still want to leave because there is no hope. These leaders have ended up baptizing Nigerians with hopelessness. People are lamenting. People that left school can't find job. There's chaos everywhere, but these politicians are still enjoying in their houses. It doesn't concern them what Nigerians are going through. I mean, it is a survival of the fittest, but we are not struggling it with them because they have the money. It's meant for them, for their family, for their immediate family, and Nigerians can go to blazes. You can imagine a struggling economy. The president is not talking about cutting down his allowances and his salary. The National Assembly members that take millions from, they are not talking about cutting down their expenses, their salaries, their allowances. I mean, it is only the government officials or workers that cry, because even for them to give you that minimum wage is a difficult thing. And then when they give it to you, for them, it's as if they've done the best for you. So the whole system is in a mess at the moment, courtesy of INEC chairman. INEC chairman will continue to be blamed for all the calamity that has come upon Nigeria. Because if INEC had allowed elections to be conducted in a rightful manner, I don't think we'll be where we are today. Because if Tinubu could not win Lagos, where else will Tinubu win? If Tinubu was rejected even in his own polling unit, where else will Tinubu be accepted? If Nigerians were already tired of Tinubu, tell me, where will Tinubu be accepted? Tinubu failed in Lagos. Tinubu failed in the FCT, the most popular environment in Nigeria. Tinubu couldn't win those places. And that's why you see him and Wike doing all what they are doing. They want to capture more states and put in their people to manipulate during election so that Tinubu can be declared winner. Anyway, you know that in Nigeria, elections don't count. They don't count. So guys, let me know what you think about all this happening in Nigeria. It's really so sad. that Nigerians have been subjected to this level of, suffering, or call it whatever, that people are going through, and then we have this heartless set of leaders that don't even care about the plights of Nigerians. It's really so sad that we are here as a country. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell. Please give this video a like so that YouTube can recommend it to others, and drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you.